Hi, how are you? Today I have a couple of stories about encountering the mafia in southern Italy. In 1983, I was in the US Air Force and I was assigned to a small site on top of a mountain called Mount Rodello in southern Italy, and there were only 26 of us guys assigned there. It was a really interesting assignment, not only because of the people in southern Italy and the culture, but also because the mafia was really strong in southern Italy at the time. When I first arrived there, I came into the airport at Reggio Calabria, which was the nearest city to Mount Rodello. The guys from the site picked me up, and as we drove through town, there was a building that didn't actually look all that old, but it was mostly rubble. Well, the guys told me that it had been blown up by the mafia just a few days before that because the restaurant owner, and it was a restaurant, the owner would not pay the mafia from his profits. I said, wow. After we left the city and we were starting to drive up the mountain road, I saw this burnt out car on the side of the road and I mentioned it to the guys. I said, why don't the local people clean that up? And he said, well, they don't dare. The mafia left that as a warning that if they don't cooperate with the mafia, this is what happens. All I could say again is, wow, louder. A few months later, it was decided that the pavement between buildings at our site was getting kind of shoddy and needed to be repaved. Well, the Air Force contracting office contracted with a local pavement company, and they came and they did the repavement. And a few days later, they called the site commander and said that the local mafia boss wants to come and check out the job, make sure that they did a good job repaving the parking lot. And I think he was just interested in seeing the site because he was curious. Well, the day came that the mafia boss, Mr. Scarpello, was going to be coming to the site, and we were all out waiting to greet him. His big black car came to the gate, and we opened it up for him. The car drove in, the back doors opened up. Two young guys jumped out. They were wearing Hawaiian shirts and shorts, and they had a bulge in the back of their waistbands where their guns were. And they looked around, checking out the place, making sure everything's safe for Mr. Scarpello. And then they waved him out of the back seat, and he came out, and Mr. Scarpello looked, well, like you'd imagine a mafia boss would look, a little older guy wearing pinstripe suit, and he came up to each of us, putting his arm around us, all happy to see us, talking Italian. I like Americans. And all we could do is, just didn't want to aggravate him or anything. So we were just, see, yeah, see, Benny, see. There was a rule that no outside guns were allowed on the site. And one of the guys asked our site commander if he was going to ask the bodyguards for their guns. And he just went, no, no. The site commander gave Mr. Scarpello a little tour of the site, or what he could show him. So they went through a couple of the buildings and they got to the chow hall. And oh, by the way, in the Air Force, you can't call a chow hall because the workers get offended. They say, we are the dining facility, not a chow hall. But anyway, they got there, and the Italian workers that were the cooks there, they were contracted through a company in the local area. And just like any company that wanted to stay in business, they had to pay off the mafia. So it was in their best interest for the cooks to make nice with Mr. Scarpello. They were asking him if he'd like something to eat, if he'd like a cup of coffee, if he'd like to sit and put his feet up. Yeah, they were doing everything they could to get in his good graces. Finally, the tour was over. Mr. Scarpello decided that the repayment job was done really well, and he was quite satisfied. And it was time for him to leave, and the big black car drove off the gate and down the mountain, and we were relieved. Nobody got shot, nobody got killed. It was a good day. Wise men say only fools rush in, but I can't help. Oh, I'm just practicing my Elvis impression. I know, it needs a little work, but wise men say you should like this video and subscribe to this channel. Okay? Thank you very much. Okay, Colonel, I'm ready for my Nutter sandwich. A couple of months later, we met a couple of mafia thugs in an accident, and how that happened was, well, the site had two extended cab pickup trucks and a half-ton flatbed truck. And the support base, San Vito Air Base, the transportation squadron there, contacted us and let us know that they have a brand new Ford Bronco for us, which was, well, got everybody excited because we would have something much cooler to drive besides what we already had. The only thing was we had to drive to San Vito Air Base to pick it up, which was about an 8-hour drive from the west coast of Italy to the east coast of Italy. So the morning started very early. There was me, a couple other guys needed to do some business at San Vito, and the first sergeant. And then there are a couple other guys too that just were able to come along because there was room so they could get off the site and wouldn't go stir crazy. We started out very early that day, got down the mountain, got onto the highway, and got to San Vito in plenty of time to get some business done. And the next day we were going to take a look at the Bronco. So all of us gathered over at the transportation squadron, and there it was. Oh, it was nice. We were all standing there looking at it, saying, this is great. And I was thinking that maybe I'll get to drive it back. You know, there were just a few of us that were authorized to drive vehicles at the site, and I was one of them. And I was thinking that just when the first sergeant, Ben, mentioned, he said, I'm going to be driving it back. And I said, what? Oh, I'm kicking the pavement. Said, okay, fine. I was hoping I could drive it and everything. Then one of the guys said, shotgun. Oh, I can't even be shotgun. Okay, fine. The next day we started out early. We had a small convoy. We had the extended pickup truck in the front and the Bronco behind us, and being driven by the first sergeant, Ben. And we were driving about 2/3 of the way back. We just left a village where we had lunch, and it was raining cats and dogs. And the driver was having a hard time seeing, but we were going along on this 2-lane highway and no shoulder. And the highways there were made for small cars, let alone trucks, and not for big trucks either. But sure enough, we got behind this big truck carrying gravel, and he was going pretty slow, and the driver was saying, well, I'm going to try to pass him. Can I make it? Well, we looked, we tried to see through the rain, and we saw oncoming traffic, but we said, if you punch it, you can just make it. Well, he punched it. We got beside the truck. We were gritting our teeth for a while, but we got over, got back. We were safe. We had passed him. No problem at all. So the guys in the back were watching Ben to see if he was going to pass, and he said, oh, looks like he's trying to pass. Okay, there he goes. Yeah, he made it too. I said, oh, wait a minute. Why are those trees swaying so much back there? Oh, Ben's stopping. He's turning around. Oh, we radio him. We all had radios. We radioed him, but he didn't answer. So we said, we got to stop and turn around too. So we went back to see what's going on. On the way back, we were just saying, well, we don't see that big truck anymore. Well, we got to where Ben had stopped, and he was standing, and we got out of the pickup, and there was the strangest sight. The truck had tipped over, and all this gravel came out and covered this garden. And there was a little house right by the garden. 2 old ladies came running out. The driver climbed out of the cab, and he was standing there going, and the 2 old ladies, and when I say they came running out, they really did run, and they were standing there going, their garden covered. And they started beating on the driver, and the driver looked around, and he saw a bus coming down the highway, so he ran out, flagged down the bus, jumped on it, and left. And we're just standing there going, where the hell is he going? Oh. Well, a bunch of cars stopped, looky-loos, wanted to see what's going on. One of the cars, the guy walked over, and he was an American tourist, and he said he speaks fluent Italian. Maybe he can help us out. Well, we told him what had happened, and while we were talking, the Carabinieri, the Italian Highway Patrol, sort of, they came, they stopped, they walked over, they asked us what happened. Our new friend, the American tourist, translated for us because Carabinieri didn't speak English, and they asked what had happened. We told them, and then they're looking at the whole situation. They went over and they talked with the old ladies. They came back and they said, well, we don't know. We may not have jurisdiction here, and the town police may have more jurisdiction than us. And they got in their car and left. Okay, whatever. And then a big black car came and stopped, and two big, tall-looking, tough guys came out with their pinstripe suits, and they walked over to the little old ladies and talked to them a while, and then they walked over to us, and they asked us what happened because they could speak a little English, and we told them what happened, and then they asked, well, who was driving the Bronco? And we were quick to point out Ben. And Ben's, going, and they looked at him and they said, okay, well, let's go back to our car. We want to talk to you. And they escorted him back to their car. They got him into the back seat and they sat on either side of him. The doors closed. And us guys, we just looked at each other and said, oh my God, we won't see Ben alive again. Well, after a while, the doors opened. They let him out. Ben came back and we asked him, what happened? Well, they asked me again what happened, how the accident happened, what happened to the driver. I told them and they just went, oh, okay. And then they said, fine, okay, we'll take it from here. And they shoved him out of the car and left. Well, after a while, the city police, the polici came, and they walked over, and they didn't speak English either, so our American tourist friend translated for us, and they said too, well, they think they have jurisdiction here, and they asked us, oh, so what kind of insurance do we have? We looked at each other, insurance? Well, we don't have any insurance. And they said, well, who's going to pay for this? Who's going to pay for the truck, the damages, the accident? And he said, well, if it comes to that, the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. government would pay. And they said, okay, well, do we have any paperwork about that? And he says, oh, we don't know. I don't know. And they said, well, we got to go back to the police station in town and we'll sort this out there. So we followed them into town, and the tourists came with us. Well, we were glad about that. And we got to the station. It was just a little police office. It had 2 jail cells, a couple of desks. It was a little bit like, if you remember the Andy Griffith show in the 60s, he had his police office, and it was a lot like that. And we sat there a while, and they were talking with a tourist, and he asked us again, he said, they want to know if we have any paperwork about insurance and who's going to pay for the damages. Well, we couldn't produce anything that other than some paperwork showing that the U.S. government owns these trucks. And they said, well, that's not good enough. We need to come up with something better than that, or we're going to be spending the night in jail. And we were sitting right there by the jail and kept looking at it and saying, oh boy, well, and we asked, can we call our site commander? And they said, okay, sure. So we called him, told him what had happened, and he said, well, let me speak to the police. So he talked with them. He could speak fluent Italian, so that worked out well. And after a while, they said, he wants to talk to you. And we talked to Captain Lorenzo, our site commander. He said, I'm going to come there. You just hang on. So we waited. And our tourist friend said, well, since your commander knows Italian, he's got to go. So he left and we sat there. And it was a couple hours of us sitting there looking at the jail every so often and the police staring at us. And finally, Captain Lorenzo showed up and he came in and talked to the police for a while. And he told them, well, I tell you what if we call the legal office at San Vito Air Station, and if they reassure the police that the U.S. government will pay if it comes to that, would that be good enough? And the police said, well, okay. So Captain Lorenzo tried to call the legal office at San Vito Air Station, and it was past 4:30, and 4:30 was the time that the legal office closes. So luckily, there was one of the lawyers there who was working overtime, and he answered the phone. Captain Lorenzo explained to him what was going on and asked him if he would explain to the police that the government, the U.S. government, would pay any damages for the accident if it comes to that. And he said, okay, sure, he'll talk to him. And the police said, well, okay, they'll accept that. It's okay. We can go. So we ran out of there, not looking back. We wanted to make sure they get out of there before they change their mind. And we got into our pickup and Bronco and went back back down the street and found a restaurant and had our dinner and some stiff drinks to calm down after that. After dinner, we got back out on the highway and got back to the site, and it was late at night. It had been a whole day of this whole mess. And, to this day, I still wonder if the Air Force ever ended up paying any damages for the truck, or if the old ladies ever got the gravel off their garden, if they were able to use it again. And, also, the police were rather quick to accept the explanation from the legal office and didn't seem to be interested in investigating the accident itself. I wonder if they were maybe under pressure by the mafia to get some information about payment. And, they were probably being paid off by the mafia as well as the Carbonari. And, I also wonder about the truck driver. If the mafia ever caught up with him, if he got a stern talking to, or if he's sleeping with the fishes with cement galoshes right now. You never know. But thank you for watching. That's all I have for you today. Be sure to catch my next video. Be sure to like and subscribe too. Well, have a good evening. Bye.